standing by, I think in London. Nigel, you there?
Yes, I am.
What does the rest of the world make of this? This has never happened before. Trump is doing it. A lot of European leaders detest Trump. So how do they square that?
Well, they're confused. I mean, they're still talking about G7, of course, and they're all condemning Trump for his behaviour. Although, of course, failing to notice that the Italians, this new regime in Rome, got a bit closer to America over the weekend. So it's mostly criticism. And the BBC this morning was running with the line that Trump goes into this summit ill-prepared, and they almost met with incredulity at the idea that the initial meeting between Trump and Kim will not be minuted. So what you've got here is you've got media expecting this summit to run the way that other global summits have done for decades. And of course, they just don't understand. Trump does things differently. In fact, if it wasn't for the very basis that Trump does everything in his own style, this meeting wouldn't even be happening, and they don't understand it.
Well, that kind of is the point. I mean, so it's not really possible for your European leaders to say, well, we've conducted our summits with the Kim family more effectively because they haven't had any.
No.
Do they pause and ask themselves, well, how did Trump pull this off and we couldn't?
Well, they just don't get Trump, do they? You know, what's happened over the last few decades is global leaders have all become roughly the same. There's been a consensus on virtually everything, a desire to govern much of our lives at a higher level than the nation state. That's what they're all subscribed to. They don't like Trump. They don't comprehend Trump. But of course, nobody is wishing him ill for this meeting today, at least nobody in Europe. I have heard some in America kind of saying, look, he's not really fit, he's not intelligent enough. I mean, surely everybody at this moment, everybody, regardless of their view of Trump, should be wishing him and Kim Jong Un the very best of luck. Because at the end of this, if this goes well, if trust is built, if there is a rapport of some kind between the two men, it's not about whether Trump wins, it's not about whether Kim wins, it's about whether the world wins.
I'm not reading European media every day. You, of course, are marinating in it. But in the coverage of the G7, and of course the contretemps between President Trump and Angela Merkel widely covered, did anyone note that Angela Merkel destroyed Europe and that should be held accountable for that as well, or was it all Trump is terrible?
No, it's all Trump is terrible, and nobody dares criticize Angela. But you may have noticed in the last 48 hours, the new Italian government have turned back boats coming across from Libya, people being trafficked, across the Mediterranean. It's been going on now for some years. Thousands of people have drowned. Places like Italy are flooded with 500,000 illegal immigrants that are there. And the days of Merkel are numbered, and that's what G7 said to me.
But so why, it's interesting you said nobody dares criticize Merkel. It's hard to think of a more destructive leader in modern European history. Why would people not feel they could criticize her?
Because the European project has been all about solidarity, which means we all agree on everything, we're all nice to each other. But I have to say, I'm actually very grateful to Angela Merkel. I think her decision to open up the borders in the way that she did, without being able to security check a single person, was a major contributory factor to Brexit. So I should be grateful to her for the rest of my life.
That's a good point. Has anybody outside of UKIP, the party that you helped start, or outside of Great Britain, note that? Is that sort of commonly understood, that she's unleashed forces that, our grandchildren will be dealing with?
Oh, very much so. And I mean, Viktor Orban, who very recently won the elections in Hungary with a massive majority in parliament, Viktor Orban says, we will make our own decisions in Hungary about who comes to live here. We will not pay the price for Mrs. Merkel's mistakes, and that was a major factor in Hungary. And if you listen to what Matteo Salvini, the leader of the League in Italy, and they're the party very much in the ascendancy there at the moment, again he says, we're not going to live in a Europe where the Germans make the big decisions that affect our lives. So actually, you can see this show of solidarity with Macron, with Mrs. May, the increasingly weak British Prime Minister. You can see these big displays, but the reality is that politics in Europe is changing, and that Mrs. Merkel has done more to wake people up to the risks of uncontrolled immigration than anybody in history.
That's a very good point. We're at the end of something, at the beginning of something new.
Yes.
Nigel Farage, thank you, as always. Great to see you.
Thank you.